Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday. Happy week. Happy life, everybody. This is Stephen Muehlhausen of DAZN. And yes, it is Tuesday. It is 12:05 Central Standard Time, 1:05 Eastern Time, and 10:05 on the East Coast. And you're probably wondering why. On the West Coast. I do apologize. And you're probably wondering why, Steve, what in the heck are you doing here on a Tuesday at this time of day? Well, because a podcast did not happen last night. A podcast did not happen on Sunday night. And Sunday night was family night. Monday night was family night. There's times where you prioritize family over anything else in the world. And I do right now. And so that is why. That is my reason. I'm sticking to that reason. And if no one likes it, that's tough. But that's okay. But a lot of news that I was going to do one yesterday. And I'm like, you know what? I wanted to. Was busy doing stuff. And I was more importantly just hanging out with my family. And to me, that's the most important thing in the entire planet is hanging out with my family. So that's something I would barely ever do. So it was always work, work, work. But there are times in life where work needs to come last. And in this situation, and always to me, work does come last. And family first, family will always be first. And hopefully people can understand it. If not, tough. But we are here. We are live. Bigger, better, stronger than ever. If you're watching on YouTube, just click the subscribe button and please give a thumbs up to the video. I hate when people watch and don't give a thumbs up. Thumbs up. You even want to give me a thumbs down. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. I would prefer, though, a thumbs up. So that would be greatly appreciated. Also, you can, if you're watching on Facebook Live. Just simple, guys. Give a reaction to the video. And then, if you're not liking the page or following the Walkway to Fight Club page already, just click it. Click like, click follow. You're done. Pretty simple. Not bad. I make it easy for you guys. But a lot going on. We're going to start with what I felt was the biggest news yesterday. Brock Lesnar is a free agent. You read that correctly. The former multiple time WWE champion, the UFC heavyweight champion, the biggest, in my mind, the biggest marquee attraction in WWE, the guy who put UFC pay-per-views on the map, is available, and he's ready to work. Now, here's kind of where this whole situation really is at this point in the game. Just to make sure everyone is clear on that. PW Insider reported yesterday that Lesnar is a free agent. And mainly the reason anyone really found out, because the merchandise deal he had expired. The contract expired, and I was able to confirm this yesterday, expired right after WrestleMania. But he had an additional 4 months added on to where they could sell his merchandise, which I get. That makes sense. I can go along with that. So that's kind of where that led to. And that's when people started noticing, hey, I can't get Brock Lesnar merchandise on the website. Unless you really scour. The merch has been pulled. And that is that. They have been talking. Right now, nothing has been agreed upon. The way the deal had been structured, and this is how all of his deals have been structured, is he goes, regardless if it was a match-by-match deal or he had a long-term arrangement, he always would get a couple additional months where they could sell his merch, and he always had that clause in his deal. Makes sense. There's a theme here, by the way. White Sox behind me, behind my Right there. First place, Chicago White Sox, if people didn't know already. But at this point in the game, he's a free agent. His profile is still listed, though. I checked on that right before I came on. His profile is still on the Raw roster part of WWE.com. This is big news because he very rarely hits the open market. He's on the open market. And I know people are like, Steve, you always know what's going on with Brock. I literally, when we brought this up on Friday night's podcast, and I think Daryl brought it, and we brought it up. Like, what does this mean for Brock Lesnar? Now we know nothing. It's weird. He's a free agent, but in a way it's not because, there's nothing. You got to look at it. The UFC has no fans. WWE has no fans. AEW starting to get fans, and Bellator is holding shows with no fans. And if I said those four, those are the big four suitors. Let's just kind of really break that down, and we'll go from there in a minute. But he is 43. We need to remember that as well. He's 43 years old. Where does a 43-year-old Brock Lesnar go? Where does he end up? There we go. Where does he end up? And like I said, you got WWE, you got UFC, AEW, and you also got Bellator. Let's kind of we'll go in alphabetical order, just for cracks and giggles. We'll start with AEW. And where do you guys think Brock Lesnar ends up? Leave any questions, leave any comments, and definitely leave them, and they will get read on the air. AEW, I know there's a couple people there that like the idea of having him because of the name he brings and the attraction that he is. But there's also people in AEW that are like, he's really not worth the cheddar for what they're trying to present. And I can go along with that sentiment, I guess. He is a big name. He's the biggest name. Say what you will about that. He should not be the biggest name in the game in pro wrestling at this point. Because this is where the whole star-making thing really, when you're in terms of WWE, that's kind of where people get lost, is the fact of we're pushing all these older guys. And I know people are going to say about AEW, oh, Jericho's 50. Jericho's around every week. Brock Lesnar's around far and few in between. And that's his deal. And if he's able to get that deal, God bless him. I can never begrudge anybody for wanting to do what's better for themselves and for their family and for their own sanity. Sometimes you just need a break from this. You really do. I think about that quite often. Like, I wasn't going to even podcast today. I wasn't going to do nothing until tomorrow. But I thought what is going on right now is pretty pertinent. I can take an hour out of my day and we can sit and chat. But he'd be good he'd pop ratings. He'd be good for a while. I think he'd pop a buy rate or two, depending on who you put him in there with. Like, I think him and Jericho would do well. I think you put him in there with him and Omega. I think that would be quite entertaining, I think. Adam Page, I think, could be another guy. But there's some guys there that Brock Lesnar can end up with. I think AEW is not. I know everyone's like, well, they got a budget, but sometimes when once in a lifetime attractions come about, this is where I think Tony Khan's and I get you have a budget, and you come from the owning and now a Premier League team, and being with your dad and the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I understand you have a budget, you have structure, I get all that. But this guy doesn't come around every so often. Guys of this caliber don't come around and hit the market. There's some matches there. I know people there that want him, but there's people there that don't want him. I get the reasons. I get it. I understand. But you got to remember who he is, what he brings to the table. I think that's something AEW is really, I think they have to consider it. He's available. He's got no contractual obligations. So I think that's something he does have to, he should consider. Bellator. Now, Ariel Helwani of ESPN reached out to Scott Coker. Scott Coker said, if he's available and available to fight, I'm very interested in him and Fedor Emelianenko. I have also talked to Bellator, and I've gotten the same answer via text message earlier today. There's a lot of money that can be made for Fedor and Brock Lesnar. There still is, even 8, 9, 10 years later after the fact, there's still plenty of money to be made. There was plenty of money to be made in 2016 when this fight almost happened, or 2015 when this fight almost happened again. It was all but signed, sealed, and delivered for Cowboy Stadium. And then Fedor's dad passed away, and Fedor lost interest. Hey, I can get it. I can understand. But I think at this stage, the fight is still viable. Plenty of people would watch. You got the man many still considered the GOAT. And it's hard to debate. You got a guy who people feel is not only the greatest heavyweight of all time, but also the greatest MMA fighter of all time, against the quite arguably the biggest pay-per-view attraction in the history of mixed martial arts. You got to think about that here. Now, Viacom owns Bellator. Viacom has billions of dollars in cash. How much is that fight worth to Viacom? That's the question. Is it worth, say, let's go $10 to $15 million? Is $10 to $15 million worth the Bellator? And more importantly, the Viacom to get Brock Lesnar to the table for a fight with Fedor Emelianenko? And here's the kicker. Say it is. Let's just go out and shoot for the stars here and say, okay, it's worth it. Say Brock wants to sit and talk turkey with Scott Coker and the people at Viacom, Steven Espinoza and the boys over there. I would put it on CBS. I wouldn't put it on pay-per-view. You know the advertising you could get for this? I'm not saying it's going to equal. No, Fedor is probably going to get $5-6 million. Fedor is going to get paid good. Is Viacom willing to eat, say, 15 to low $20 million area? Can they make that up in advertising? Before COVID-19, absolutely. Right now, highly unlikely. I hate saying that, but it's the truth. That way, then you'd have to look to pay-per-view. How much would you be willing to pay for Brock Lesnar and Fedor Emelianenko under the Bellator banner? Just take the Bellator part out of it, I think. It's just happening in their cage. You got Brock Lesnar, even at age of 43. And the fact we're having this, and this is what people don't understand either, we're having the damn conversation. We should not be having this conversation, people. We really shouldn't. That speaks to the testament of Brock Lesnar, the drawing power of Brock Lesnar, the attraction known as Brock Lesnar. Where do you guys think Brock Lesnar ends up? Leave a comment. Leave a question. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook, go to the YouTube channel, The Walkway to Fight Club. Hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. Watching via Facebook, give a reaction to the video. like the Walkway to Fight Club page, and also follow the page as well. Where does Brock Lesnar end up? And that's the thing here. Would you pay, let's say, would you pay $60? UFC pay-per-views are $65. Let's go, you know what? Yeah, let's go $60. Would you pay $60 to see Brock Lesnar and Fedor Emelianenko? Would you pay $50? Would you pay $40? Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Is it worth $40? How many buys would it do? That's all. I still think that's a 600,000 set. I think low end is 500,000 buys. Say 500,000 buys. We'll start at $60. That's $30 million. There you go. You get part of the, say you get a 40% cut to the pay-per-view provider. And satellite, and it's say 40%. Okay, 40% of 30 million. Look at it's a little over 20 million bucks. There you go. You're done. It's a wash. You can make money on advertising, everything else on the back end. You're going to make a little bit of cheddar. I think that's the price point you'd have to do it. I think low end is 5. We'll go low end 500,000 pay-per-view buys. I think it would do more, but hey. Viacom would have to make sure it's financially feasible. I'd put it on CBS. That's just me. Because that does, to me, that's mega money. I think the rating would be tremendous. You're looking at, what, 4 to 6 million viewers? Good Lord. That's a lot of people. And then you get more people to watch Bellator. You put on a good undercard. Maybe you also air it on DAZN. You try, then that drives the subscriber base, and maybe DAZN wants to keep Bellator. Maybe. I don't know. You got to think about that here. Does that work? I think so. I really do. Daryl Rivera, Daryl, good for watching, man. Work hard. You should be working, not watching me. $50. Okay, we'll go see the $50 route. That's $25 million. 40%, I think you're looking at, I think you keep about, I think it's around 10 million, around that. 15 million, you're a little bit of a loss. You could still get a wash depending how you do with advertising. Between $50 and $60, I would have legit, honestly, I would not have a problem with that. I really would not. Okay. We did Bellator. We did AEW. Where do we go now? The Ultimate Fighting Championship. The UFC. Man, I appreciate man. You guys are kicking butt today. I love it. Just kind of thought about it in my mind for about 5 seconds and thought I'd come down. I was going to do this at 7 o'clock this morning. My son woke me up. I went back to bed. These sinuses, man. The pollen count. Woohoo! You got allergies. I get bad reactions to pollen when the pollen count is high. So if anyone feels my pain, sucks. All right. The UFC, Brock Lesnar. This makes some sense. Duh. Knowing Lesnar's history. Former UFC heavyweight champion. Came in, took the MMA world by storm, became the champion. beat Randy Couture, defended the title against Frank Mir, Shane Carwin, lost to Cain Velasquez. Brock left after losing to Alistair Overeem, and then went back to WWE and came back at UFC 200 in July of 2016 against Mark Hunt. Now, won by dominant unanimous decision, and then ended up failing a drug test. Now, he's been teasing this on and off throughout the years. Let's make that I think we kind of know Brock plays both sides of the game and plays the UFC and plays WWE. He does. And well, if we're gonna be in the honest tree here, knowing and talking to both sides throughout the years and the frustration of both sides. I know people are like, he's gonna play both sides again. The door is pretty open here. All he's got to want to do is trudge on in. And the question is, would he trudge on in? Remember, he almost came back in 2018 and got in that brouhaha, the fracas, with then heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier after he had beat Stipe Miocic. That was the goal. That was the fight. Lesnar even went back into USADA pool. That's how much he wanted this fight. But then they couldn't agree to a deal. Which I still blame the UFC for this. I honestly think Daniel Cormier would have retired after that. I really do. He would have gotten the moment he always wanted on the biggest stage, making the biggest money. The biggest money, and I know this is going to piss people off and get them upset, but the biggest fight is still Brock Lesnar. Whether it's Daniel Cormier, John Jones, Stipe Miocic, going back to WWE and Roman Reigns or Randy Orton, Keith Lee, whoever, and we'll get into that in a minute. But if you're looking, that's going to make Brock a ton of money. It's going to be the biggest payday for Cormier, Miocic, Jones, Ngannou, the UFC, Dana White, ESPN, and that's where I think this deal can happen. ESPN. The UFC already gets their preset amount. The UFC's like, hey, we want we want to make more money. What do we need? What can we do? What's a fight out there? What's bigger than John Jones and Brock Lesnar? John Jones tweeted about this last night. John's not messing around here. He told Brock he's ready for his bitch ass. I don't know how. That's just a way to say, hey, I want the fight. This has been teased before. John's called him out before. After Jones beat Cormier the second time, Jones called him out. Jones has always brought up Lesnar. Lesnar's always wanted, I know for a fact, talking to people in WWE, talking to people in UFC, and people around Brock Lesnar, that's a fight Brock Lesnar's always wanted. He's wanted Jones, and he really wanted Cormier. I don't know how much Miocic or Ngannou would tickle his fancy. I know he wasn't happy with the Ngannou-Derek Lewis fight because he was there. Wasn't happy with Miocic's performance the first time around against DC. But that was very much real. He didn't re-enter the USADA pool for cracks and giggles. You've seen the muscle mass got a little smaller and he got more in fighting shape. He looked good. He still looks good. As far as I know, he wants to fight. But if he's going to pull the trigger on this, it's got to be soon. This can't be a thing where, and as far as, I don't know if he's still into USADA pool. USADA doesn't update their stuff very well. So I think that's kind of. I've never been a fan of the way they do their drug testing pool system. But let's see here. I'm just trying. I'm looking right now for you guys. Oh, come on. I don't like the USADA website here. Every time I try to. Let's see. Let's see. If Brock Lesnar is going to do this, and you look at, you got Miocic, you got Ngannou. I don't know how kosher, because Ngannou's brought it up. Stipe will fight anybody. The heavyweight division's pretty open. You got some legit contenders. I have no, hey, if Brock Lesnar said, you know what? I'm going to make one. Randy Couture won. Look how old Couture was, and Randy Couture was, and he won the heavyweight title. Come on. If Randy freaking Couture can do it, Brock's got better striking. Brock's wrestling is better. Why not? Brock Lesnar is still a freak of nature. Even at 43. There's plenty of mega fights out there. I wouldn't mind seeing Brock against Jones, Brock against Miocic. This is what I would do. Say, and I think ESPN, I imagine there are some conversations, and I've asked the UFC, and I've gotten no comment yet. I don't know. Do I think he's interested? Absolutely. With the UFC, he's available. They don't have to go through the WWE hoops. They can just go straight to the horse's mouth, per se, and say, hey, what do you want? What are you looking for? Obviously, he's looking to get paid because Brock Lesnar's a mercenary. Like it or not. That's what makes Brock Brock. If I'm Brock Lesnar, consider it. ESPN, you got to consider it. You know, who cares? Yeah, you're going to miss a little bit with the gate, but regardless of who you would fight. And I get that too. Maybe you try to get between 20 and 30% of, or between 20 and 33% capacity. Seems like that's the numbers everyone's doing. Maybe you go that way. I wouldn't be outright against that idea. But I think that is a very realistic possibility. There's plenty of fights there. There's plenty of money to be made. You sign a 2-3 fight deal, 15 to 20 million a fight. Say your guarantee is, we'll be cute and say 10, which I think the guarantee would be more close to 15. Cut of the pay-per-view, you're looking at them between, I realistically think between $15 and $25 million a fight. Because look at the Jones fight. To me, the Jones fight is an over $2 million buy pay-per-view. It really is. I think it's that big of a pay-per-view. And this is where Mike Finch, how the hell are you, dude? Lesnar Jones, let's go. Daryl Rivera, Lesnar Jones, the fight to make right now. Buy rates would be high, worth the $70. It's a $2 million plus buy pay-per-view. I think it does over two. I think between 2 and 2.5 million buys on pay-per-view. Easy. Not even thinking about it. It's easy. Brock will barely talk, but Brock will sell enough, and you know John's going to sell. People are like, oh, you know, this is not a coincidence. It is. Trust me. It is. No one really knew he was a free agent. I was trying to find out. I didn't get a response till after the fact it came out. So you can connect the dots on that one. I think a Miocic pay-per-view over $1 million. I think 1.5. Between 1 and 1.5, I would be the biggest payday of Stipe's career. It'd be the biggest payday of Jones's career. Let's just be realistic about it, everybody. Brock Lesnar's going to make everyone a ton of cash. Jones, Miocic, we'll say Ngannou, maybe DC. Maybe DC would come back for that. I think DC's a 1.5 to 2 million buy pay-per-view. Jones, Miocic, Ngannou, Cormier, ESPN, the UFC, everyone would make a crack ton of cash off of Brock Lesnar. And more importantly, Brock Lesnar. Now to the World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. I know everyone's kind of poo-pooed. Oh, this really isn't a big deal. He's just gonna go back. The money would be too great. And yes, I can get where people, I get it. It's like, oh, it's where he can get paid the most annually. I don't necessarily agree with that argument. Just because, one fight a year, you're going to get $15 million. I know he's not getting that much a year in WWE. I know that for a fact. He's getting into 7 figures. Guaranteed, I know that. But it's not 10 to 15. Kind of close to 10, but not exactly 10. But I think that statement is false. I think he would go. There's plenty there in WWE, and let's just be. You get the whole. When we talked about this on Daryl and I talked about this on Friday, you got the whole Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman situation. You can. There's a lot of money in Lesnar and Reigns still. You can flip roles. Reigns the legit heel. Lesnar the babyface, and you can kind of play off that. Or you can go with Paul playing with both guys. You can go there. You got, I think, and what we've seen at the Royal Rumble, Keith Lee. I think there's a lot of, and you can see like the light bulb going off on Lesnar's head when he was smiling. He's thinking, oh my God, I can make a lot of money with this guy. He can. He can make a ton. A ton of cash. How much? A lot. I think him and Keith Lee, would be fantastic. We'll talk about Keith Lee in a few minutes. You can maybe go The Fiend. Thinking him and Bray Wyatt, I think there's some money there. I think there's money with Matt Riddle. There's a couple different big money situations with WWE. You look at also Saudi Arabia. You can get a lot of them when they go there. WWE goes there a couple times a year. I think annually, if he's looking for get in, get out, and be done, it's UFC. Now, where does he ultimately end up? I think it's between WWE and UFC. I know contract talks hit an impasse with WWE, but I do know a conversation, because when I asked yesterday, hasn't a conversation occurred with the UFC? I just got a smiley face. You can take that 5 different ways. But you have to think, and this is how Brock works. Brock's going to talk to everybody. I think a conversation is going to take place with all 4 entities, the other 3 entities, UFC, Bellator, and AEW. The $1 million question is, where does Brock Lesnar end up? I think in order, WWE, in terms of odds, WWE, UFC, and I think Bellator and AEW are tied in terms of percentage. My heart of hearts, I want to see him back in the UFC. I want to see him in Jon Jones. I want to see Brock Lesnar fight. I love watching Brock Lesnar. Even you look at somehow 18 years later, after making his debut in March 2002 in WWE, we're still talking about Brock Lesnar at an extremely high level, having great wrestling matches. He went over 5 years without competing in the octagon, over 4.5 years, and won a fight. That's a generational talent. That's an exceptional athlete. I want to see those. He can always go back to wrestling. If I'm Brock Lesnar, right now, the more bang for your buck is the Ultimate Fighting Championship. WWE will always be there. You take one or two fights, you just take a one-off with Jon Jones, which I think would be the likely move. That should be the move. You do that, you can go back to wrestling. Wrestling is going to be there. You can go then on the road to WrestleMania. Do a show in Saudi. And you go from there. WrestleMania. Look at all these, making all this. Brock Lesnar can have a hell of a financial situation and just keep farming, baby, in Saskatchewan. But if I am Brock Lesnar, I am going to the UFC, fight Jon Jones, and if you beat Jon Jones, heck, you could face the winner of Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou for the heavyweight championship of the world. Think about that. That is awesome. Now, let's get into next topic really quickly. Let's get into Mauro Ranallo leaving WWE. I had heard about this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And his mom's been pretty sick. And he's been she lives in Vancouver, British Columbia. So she's been up there for a while. I'm going to read this statement from Mauro put on. Let's see. For everybody to read. All right, this is what he put on his Facebook page. I appreciate the opportunity I had to realize my childhood dream of working in sports entertainment, and I wish WWE well in the future. Now I want to direct my focus and devote my time to other projects and to my mental health charitable activities and the well-being of my mother and myself. Ranallo is 50 years old. From what I have been told, he will continue to work for Showtime doing boxing telecasts, and he will still be working for Bellator. WWE put out a statement as well. WWE and Mauro Ranallo have mutually and amicably agreed to part ways. Mauro's passion and enthusiasm left an indelible and exciting mark with WWE and its fans, and we wish him the best in the future endeavors. Which means he did leave on a good note. It's always been a turbulent ride for Mauro Ranallo in WWE. Started out on the SmackDown brand. And then, then the whole situation with JBL left. They agreed to a new deal to only do NXT to get away from what I had always been told was a toxic environment, a.k.a. John Bradshaw Layfield, and the constant harassment of Vince McMahon. And he loved working with Paul Levesque and Michael Cole. I love Mauro Ranallo. Mauro Ranallo is the best wrestling play-by-play commentator right now in the game. Or was the best in the game right now. Was the best. His mom is pretty sick. From what I've talked to a guy close to Mauro. A source close. I can not say a guy close to Mauro. And his mom's not doing well. And that's the reason he went back. And, he was working from home. WWE was very accommodating in the fact that they let him work out of his home studio in Santa Monica, California. And instead of having to fly to Orlando, put himself at risk. Because when you have mental health issues, the anxiety's up and you're scared and you're worried about everything. So I can't blame Mauro. Can't blame anyone that would want to stay home during this. I barely have left my house. I've only gone to the grocery store. Home Depot has become my go-to. But I do wish the best for Mauro Ranallo. I'm going to watch him on Showtime Boxing. I'm going to watch him when he's doing Bellator. I think a fantastic commentator for pro wrestling. You could see, especially during the takeover shows, you could hear the passion Mauro has for this. And I wish Mauro the best. Maybe we see Mauro again down the road. Everyone's like, oh, he needs to go to AEW. Jim Ross is still there. Jim Ross is still doing awesome. And for anyone that wants to bash JR, go pound sand. Because JR is still doing very well at a very high level. I wish I had a tenth of the talent of JR. And I want to end with this. The Raw main event finish. I didn't watch Raw until late. Very late. This coffee is cold. But I have my first place White Sox mug. The main event was Keith Lee, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, the winner to face Drew McIntyre at Clash of Champions on September the 27th. Now, Keith Lee beat Dolph Ziggler to get to this spot to begin the show. Randy Orton beat Kevin Owens in I think it was 12 seconds. And then Seth Rollins beat Dominic Mysterio, replacing Rey Mysterio, who has a partially torn tricep. I was told to be out about 8 to 10 weeks. Right now will not need surgery and will be rehabbing, from what I have been told. 8 to 10 weeks isn't so bad. It's better than a full tear, which you're looking at 6 to 8 months. So the best of luck to Rey Mysterio. Not the best time, but it's not the worst news. So you don't ever want to partially torn anything, partially broken anything. But it's good to see that it won't be an extended leave because Rey was really doing some good work. I have no problem with those three being in that spot. And what I have a major problem with is that finish. Orton hits the RKO on Keith Lee. That was a beautiful freaking flip over Keith Lee to pin Seth Rollins after Keith Lee had given the Spirit Bomb to Seth Rollins. That Spirit Bomb is phenomenal, by the way. And yet again, Randy Orton pins Seth Rollins. And once again, we have to see a rematch of what we just seen. Randy Orton will face Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at Clash of Champions on September 27th. That sucks. Don't get me wrong. The SummerSlam match was very good. You can make the case the best match on the show. And the finish was very unique. You went with the backslide. Neither guy hit their finisher. And you had a very creative finish to where you leave the opening of what they did. Neither guy hit their finisher. But then, and this is where I have the problem. But then you have Orton lose to Keith Lee. That you put yourself in the predicament knowing there's two ways of a school of thought you can go with here. You don't make the match because you leave yourself pigeonholed. You can't have Orton beat Lee. You could have, and that wouldn't have surprised me because it's Vince McMahon. Or Keith Lee goes over strong. And you go Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre. And some of you want to get cute, do a three-way and add Randy Orton. And then somehow Randy gets in there. But WWE didn't do that. I would have been content if they did a four-way. And you want to add Rollins? Cool. I would have done that. I would have done a DQ. You could have done a DQ finish last night. No one wins. And then you got a fatal four-way. Or just a four-way. But WWE is so keen. Look at Raw last night. Oh my God, I've seen 16,000 rematches. Good Lord. Be creative, Vince. Be creative, Bruce. I would have went with Keith Lee. And I'm not saying it all because Keith Lee is the new flavor of the week. I've already seen Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. You can go back to Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. But I have a problem with a guy losing last night, a guy losing at Payback. So a guy that was in the match. If I'm Keith Lee, it's like, why is Randy Orton here? I already beat his ass. Make him go somewhere. Make him earn his way back to even being in this match. They didn't do that. What they did is typical WWE and just be predictable. The unpredictable would have been Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at Clash of Champions. They had a lot of goodwill. A great SummerSlam with a great ending. I thought Raw last week was pretty good. Beyond that goofiness with Keith Lee, I thought Raw overall was good. A great SmackDown. Roman Reigns turns heel. A very good Payback show that had no reason being good. You had all this goodwill. Keep that momentum going. You're showing the fans, hey, we're willing to do new things. We're willing to be creative. I'm giving you what we want. I don't see many people clamoring for Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre right now. I don't. I checked. Not really. That finish sucked. Plain and simple. If you're going to go with that finish, Orton shouldn't be hitting the RKO on Keith Lee. Sorry. That should not be happening. Why is Randy Orton hitting the RKO on Keith Lee? Not necessary. All you're doing is cutting Keith Lee off at the head. Because he could have went and just pinned, Orton could have just went and pinned Keith Lee. The more this company, they start to get into good win, then they do something stupid. That finish was terrible. Keith Lee should have won that match. Who wants to see? Because now you know Orton has to win. Now Orton's going to win. Orton's going to have a program with Keith Lee. And then Orton's going to go on to face Edge at WrestleMania. I don't need to see Edge and Randy Orton for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 37. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see two old guys for the WWE Championship. What would have been wrong with Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee? What? Humor me. I'm in the mood to be humored. I am. Really, 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 really am. Horrible finish. I would have gone Keith Lee. Because now I know what they're going to do. Orton's going to win the Clash of Champions. He's going to program with Keith Lee. He's going to beat Keith Lee. And then he's going to go on to face Edge. Okay. I just drew up WWE's programs through WrestleMania. Pay me. But horrible finish. But we will end with that because I don't want to cuss. But now, thank you to everyone. A lot of people pouncing in. A lot of people bouncing out. People giving reactions, which is freaking awesome. Thank you, everybody, so much. You can find the Walkway to Fight Club on Facebook. Facebook.com/The Walkway to Fight Club, or go in the search bar, The Walkway to Fight Club. Or if you are watching on Facebook right now, man, just give a reaction to the video like you guys have been doing. Click that like button. Click the follow button. It's not hard to do. Boop, boop, boop. Done. I just did it in like 3 seconds. You can go to the Twitter page at Walkway Fight. On Instagram, Walkway to Fight Club. My Twitter, right there at the bottom, at S Muehlhausen JR. Or you can find my candid takes. You can find my writing on DAZN and sportingnews.com. You can also find us on YouTube. The Walkway to Fight. If you're watching on YouTube right now, just like the video, subscribe to the channel. Just hit that thumbs up. I know you want to. Just do it. Do what the swoosh says of Nike. Just do it. And you can find us on, this will be available on audio as well in a little bit. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Anchor, Overcast, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. A lot of cool crap coming up. I have a very candid interview with The Miz. That was fun. The Miz gets a lot of flack, but we had some fun. We talked fantasy football. We talked about why he feels the Cleveland Browns are a playoff team and not the Chicago Bears. We talked about my White Sox. My first place Chicago White Sox are better than the Cleveland Indians. We talked about how the new WWE schedule is good for him and his family. And yes, we did address the controversy with him and Big E. We get into that right at the end. But no, it was a very candid interview. It was a lot of fun. More fun than I was expecting. So I thought that was pretty cool. We've got some MLW interviews coming up. We got 2 special interviews regarding MLW and their big news about their restart. And a new talent signing for MLW. So we talked to the newest signee of Major League Wrestling, which is right now on DAZN. Just get the app. Get the app. Sign up. Pay the monthly fee. Go to DAZN.com. And you can watch the best of Major League Wrestling. And have some other cool interview with Alistair Overeem that will be up later this week. The Reign returns. UFC on Saturday night. So it'll be good to reconnect with the former Strikeforce heavyweight champion, the former Grand Prix champion. We will talk to Alistair Overeem. And a couple other cool things on the docket as well, which I am looking forward to. And I can't announce yet because that's not set in stone. But this is Steven Muehlhausen. I will be back tonight to recap the 60-minute 4-way match for the NXT Heavyweight Championship. Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, and my pick to win, Finn Balor. I'm looking forward to that match. It should be awesome. We'll be back at 10:15 Eastern, 9:15 Central. Hopefully Daryl will join me tonight. This is Steven Muehlhausen, and I'll talk to you guys next time.